This is Point Possession. And in 1778, Captain Cook buried a bottle here with silver coins and letters in it. That bottle's never been found, and we're gonna try and find it. That bottle's never been found because it's buried in an area that's difficult in the extreme to access. You have to cross a body of water with severe tides, currents, shallow mud flats, and even bore tides. And once you cross that body of water, you need to use metal detectors in the area to try and detect that bottle. In my entire life, I've never seen or even heard of someone making this crossing. But I figure if Captain Cook can do it in those old wooden rowboats, then we could probably do it also. But don't worry, I'm gonna tell you all the details. But first, we need to do some history, and I love history, especially when it has to do with buried treasure.
I haven't been in the library in quite a while, to be honest, but I spent most of my life through my 20s and 30s in a library and in a hospital. Check this out. The librarian, they had here in the rare book section, first edition of Captain Cook's journals. These are amazing. These are printed in the 1780s. Captain Cook ended their journey in 1779. Obviously, Captain Cook died before the end of the third voyage, but these were the actual prints of the journals that they wrote. And it's really cool because in here, they have these maps. I gotta be super careful with them because these are really delicate. I don't want to damage these. I looked up these books online and they're selling for like $60,000, so I can't believe they're actually letting me take a look at them. But if I carefully open this up, I need to be super careful here. There we go. Check this out. It's the actual maps that Captain Cook and his crew created of the American Northwest coast up into Alaska, and it has the actual routes they took of the coastline and the islands that they saw. And they have all the details in South Central Alaska of the Kenai Peninsula and the Cook Inlet, and that's where I grew up. This is like amazing to be able to see these original journals, these original maps. All right, so there's a couple things we're looking for. We're looking for the maps that he drew. We're looking for the pictures that the artist drew, and we're also looking for the specific text that Captain Cook wrote down about their ceremony at Point Possession and what they did at Point Possession, and as far as burying the bottle and what was in the bottle. So this right here, this is the part that really matters, okay? This is the paragraph where they talk about their ceremony at Point Possession, and they describe exactly what they do. He says, in the afternoon, I sent Mr. King again in 2 armed boats with orders to land on the northern point of the low land on the southeast side of the river, which they mean the Turnagain River, there to display the flag, in other words, plant the flag, and to take possession of the country and river in His Majesty's name, and to bury in the ground a bottle containing some pieces of English coin of the year 1772, and a paper on which was inscribed the names of the ships and the date of our discovery. In the meantime, the ships were got under sail in order to proceed down the river. How cool is that? He literally describes burying a bottle with coins dated 1772 and a letter inside giving the names of their ships and the date of the discovery. We've got to find this.
So it's going to help us to know a little bit about the 3 voyages of Captain Cook. So a brief summary of those 3 voyages. Now, his 3rd voyage is when he went to Alaska, but his first voyage started in 1768. Started in England, and the main goal of his first voyage was to get to Tahiti and measure the transit of Venus. So he comes from England, he comes down the Atlantic, down through Drake's Passage into the Pacific, and into Tahiti. He spends a couple months in Tahiti. They successfully measure the transit of Venus, and then he starts his journey home. But he comes across New Zealand and he maps New Zealand. After he maps New Zealand, he runs into Australia and maps the entire eastern coast of Australia. He gets almost shipwrecked on the Great Barrier Reef, but miraculously he saves the ship, ends up coming across the Indian Ocean, down across the Cape of Good Hope of Africa, up the Atlantic, back to New England, basically returns a rock star. On his second voyage, he's tasked with finding the fabled land of Terra Australis. Now, that land doesn't actually exist, but it was rumored to exist. So He comes down the Atlantic Ocean, and this land is supposed to be a great southern continent, so he's supposed to go as far south as he can go, basically around the entire globe. He crosses the Antarctic Circle 3 different times as he traverses the globe in an eastern direction. He's the first person to circumnavigate the globe in an eastern direction. And again, he comes down south of Australia, south of New Zealand, ends up coming back up into the Polynesians for a while, takes another trip down across the Antarctic Circle, concludes that there's no great southern continent, but he also correctly concludes that there is a southern continent that is producing all the ice because he runs in walls of ice. Every time he goes as south as far as he can go, gets turned around by just walls of ice. And he comes across the southern point of South America, back up the Atlantic, returns to England, again a rock star. Basically at this point, he can retire and live a good life, but he has the opportunity to go on a third voyage. In this voyage, instead of going south, they ask him to go north and find Northwest Passage. The Northwest Passage was rumored to exist, and it would create a much faster route from Europe to Asia. It doesn't actually exist. Well, if you go through the Arctic Circle and so on his third voyage, he starts in England, comes down through the Atlantic Ocean, and again heads in an eastern direction, south of Australia, and comes up into Tahiti again, where he fits his boat and comes north and runs into Hawaii. Hawaii's never been mapped at this point, and specifically he lands in Kauai. He figures out that there's an entire archipelago of islands here, but he doesn't map them at this point because he needs to get north before the summer season ends. And so he comes northeast to the west coast of America, and he starts to map it as best he could. But he runs into a bunch of storms. He misses the Columbia River, he misses Puget Sound, but he makes landfall on Vancouver Island in Nootka Bay. After repairing his ships in Nootka Bay, they head north again, run into a couple more storms, but eventually they make it to South Central Alaska. He does a detailed map of South Central Alaska, specifically Prince William Sound and the Kenai Peninsula and the Cook Inlet. And in Captain Cook's original journals, he has copies of the maps of the Kenai Peninsula and Prince William Sound. And on that map, they actually label Point Possession. And Point Possession is where they did this ceremony to take possession of this land for the British Crown. And they actually mapped the area and labeled it Point Possession. And still to this day, it's called Point Possession. So this is where it actually gets really interesting. This is the map that Captain Cook and his crew produced of South Central Alaska. It's the first map of Prince William Sound, the Kenai Peninsula, and the Cook Inlet. This is interesting to me because this is where I grew up. What's so amazing about this map is this is where they first made landfall in Alaska. And in fact, actually, right here in Cape Suckling, they came to shore, but they didn't stay long, and they came across Kayak Island. And I actually have pictures of myself coming across Kayak Island, and it's a foreboding place. I mean, you're way out there in some big ocean out there. But they came across the Gulf of Alaska and saw this opening into Prince William Sound. So they came in here. They needed to get away from the big water and get into some calm water because they needed to repair their ship. So there was some thought that Prince William Sound could be the Northwest Passage. But if you look north into Prince William Sound, all you see is a gigantic wall of snow-capped mountains. And so they quickly concluded that this was not the Northwest Passage. While they were in Prince William Sound, they did do some amazing drawings by a couple of the natives there and also just the scenery of Prince William Sound. But they left Prince William Sound back out into the Gulf of Alaska, and they found a second opening going north. And this was too tempting not to go and explore. And so Captain Cook turned both their ships up north into what we now call the Cook Inlet. However, the tides were so bad that he couldn't even make any progress. You'd come in on the incoming tide, and the outgoing tide would flush you straight back out. So essentially what he did, it took him a couple days to get up the Cook Inlet. And what they'd have to do is they'd have to go up as far as they could on the incoming tide, set anchor, and let the tide go out, and the anchor would keep them there. And then when they turned slack tide and the tide would come back in, then they would make some more progress up. And it took them a couple days to get up into the north part of the Cook Inlet. And then they saw two different arms coming off. They knew they needed to explore these arms. Captain Cook was convinced that this was not the Northwest Passage, and he actually wanted to go as quickly as possible, partly because this is dangerous water, and they don't really have any second chances. So if they damage their ships, they're they're screwed if they damage their ships. So Captain Cook wanted to explore this area as quickly as possible and get back out into deeper water. So what he does is he sends 2 different groups of people out in their wooden longboats. His Lieutenant Bligh goes north into Turnagain Arm, and he turns around and figures out that that's a dead end. There's no northwest passes that direction. And then his other lieutenant, James King, goes east into Turnagain Arm. They actually call it River Turnagain because the tides are so severe in this area. In fact, they have the 2nd largest tides in the world, second only to the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia. But what's interesting here in Turnagain Arm is the tide comes in so fast that it forms a wave of water, a wall of water that you can actually surf. In fact, my brother-in-law and his friends surf it on occasion. It's impressive how large of a wave the tide can form, and that the wave goes for 3-4 plus miles. It's pretty impressive. But this is where it gets really interesting, because before they left, they did their ceremony to take possession of this land. And if you see here on this map, it's really interesting. Right here, this tip of land at the north part of the Kenai Peninsula, this is what they call Point Possession. Here's Fire Island. They actually label exactly where they're anchoring their ships. They anchor their ships on the south side of Fire Island, just north of Point Possession. And on June 1st, 1778, Captain Cook asked his Lieutenant James King to take one of their longboats south onto this point of land. They named it Point Possession. That's where they did their ceremony to take possession of this land. And that's where they buried the bottle of coins and letters. Pretty awesome. It's pretty cool that this is all in our backyard, and the fact that this bottle's never been found. In fact, 16 years after they buried this bottle, George Vancouver came up into the Cook Inlet to map the area. And it's also important to remember that George Vancouver was on the boat with Captain Cook when Captain Cook was exploring this area, but he was on the boat as a teenager. Well, 16 years later, he's the captain of his own boat. He comes up in here and spends a couple weeks doing detailed mapping and surveying of this area. And in his journals, this would be 1794, he says that he goes to Point Possession to look for the bottle and he can't find it. We gotta at least try and look for it. I mean, how could you not? So we gotta pause for 1 second. I gotta show you something. I'm at my house, and if you look at my back porch, let me bring you over here. If you look at my back porch, it's a little windy out here. You might not be able to hear me very well, but we're on the hillside in Anchorage, and if you look across, you can actually see Point Possession across Turnagain Arm and Cook Inlet out in the distance. Exactly that point of land is Point Possession. And if I pan over towards the right, looking towards the north, right there, behind that tree, is Fire Island. And on the south side of Fire Island, so the left side of that point, is exactly where Captain Cook anchored his 2 ships, the Discovery and the Resolution. That's it right there. That is Point Possession. How could we not go looking for that bottle that Captain Cook and his men buried at Point Possession?
Well, we've established I'm crazy enough to take a boat across Turnagain Arm and look for buried treasure, but this is not something you can do alone, and I need to convince somebody to come with me. That person is Ty. He's always up for a crazy adventure, so in preparation, we got together at the headwaters of Turnagain Arm at the 20-mile river to give the gear and especially the boat a proper shakedown to make sure everything is in working order and ready for the crossing.
It had some pressure in it last time we opened it. It looks puffed up. That's just the way it is.
Okay.
Sweet. Who's your buddy? Oh, he's in our ward. This is Trevor Smith. Hey, Trevor. How are you? Good. Good.
This is a new boat to me, and the last thing you'd ever want to do is take a new boat on its first run across dangerous water. So Ty and I asked a friend to come with us, and we gave the solar jet boat a practice run up the 20-mile river.
This rafter gets stuck in freaking mud.
Yeah, dude.
So just go down there, loop up into the rocks up there, and then back down. Come on, Finley. Let me unlock the bow here. Okay.
What the heck?
Should we wait for him or should
No,
I?
let's send it. We gotta get off this mud.
Okay.
Jeez, bro. This is making me nervous. Do not like it.
Hey.
Just come back a little bit.
Are you in 4-wheel drive?
Yeah.
Okay.
4 high.
That's okay.
Launching the boat in Turnagain Arm was always a little nerve-wracking because of the severe tides and the quicksand. Captain Cook and his crew talk about the severe tides and currents they had to deal with in Turnagain Arm, but they also had to deal with deadly quicksand that we almost got our truck stuck in. As a kid, we were always told a story about a person who got stuck in the quicksand and a helicopter tried to pull them out and eventually pulled the person in half. I always thought that was an urban legend, but then I looked it up and realized it's actually true.
Here's that quicksand you want to avoid. We almost got our truck stuck in this stuff. Dude, this stuff is gnarly, man.
So Nat Geo supposedly they did some documentary on quicksand years ago, a long time ago, and they did around the world, and they came to Turnagain Arm.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And they did.
Oh.
Yeah, it'll take your shoe.
I'm like already stuck in it. Okay. First try, dude. This thing here.
That's your resistance for turning. So if you tighten that up, see that now run the tiller now. See how stiff it is?
Oh yeah.
And I loosen it.
Okay. So then what's this handle right here? There it goes. Boom.
Okay, you got something there.
Yeah. Made it happen.
Okay, so we can make this mid stiff. Where do you like it? About there?
Yeah, that feels good.
Okay. If you want to watch this bank, I'll just put it in and then let it here with the pipeline punch.
Sweet, man. That was cool. That was like a 12-hour day. Right, split these out, go left.
This is a solar 430 boat with a 30 horsepower Yamaha outboard jet motor. Its performance on the water was spectacular. It feels indestructible. It has reinforced bottom so you can smash into rocks. It only needs about 2 inches of water to operate, and we could run the boat over shallow rocks and submerged trees. Our friend has an aluminum hulled boat, and he hit a rock and put a hole in his boat.
Trevor, I see you coming in right over here, boss.
Yeah, it's coming in hard over there.
It's weird. It's right in the tunnel where it's coming up.
We were dry all day, and now it's...
Trevor, you can just kind of see it happening right here.
Yeah, I can see it flowing in from that
underneath
rib.
See where it's at?
Underneath the battery pan right here. I don't know. We all want to try it.
Oh, dude, that's it right there, huh?
We don't have any.
Try to lift it out and take it.
I'm not sure if I can see it.
Need some Flex Seal tape. We can do that. Otherwise, we'll probably just.
I think we just got to scoop, get it on step.
Yep.
Pull plugs. Well, let's pull all the gear out of this and put it in Owen if we can.
Yeah. I think we can keep our bag. Not very much. When we get rid of Zach, we'll get rid of what, 165?
Yeah, if we get rid of Zach, we'll get rid of some good weight.
It's float.
So I'll go behind you too, right?
Yeah, because then you can kind of...
I keep an eye on that at least.
Did you feel some bumps? But the motor just felt it, right?
Yeah, motor felt
The boat just soft, bumpies.
Yeah, no problem. I pumped the motor a few times, but we just felt like it's just like a soft mattress.
Okay, I'm ready when you guys are.
Let's send it.
Okay.
Let's go. Send us, please.
Thank you. There's no way to fix a boat when you're up the river, so he made the decision to bail the water out and go full throttle down the river. I tried to follow him as closely as we could, but we eventually took a wrong turn and had to hike the boat back up the river to the main channel.
Alright, well, we took the wrong direction. Now we got to pull this thing back up river because we ran out of water. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, shit. What, that didn't help?
Yes. We're not going to move.
Maybe we can hitch Finley up to this. You know what? Let's try
You know, she got out of the boat, actually. That was pretty helpful.
All right, you ready? 3, 2, 1. You're welcome, guys.
but luckily he made it all the way back down the river before the boat sank. The Solar 430 performed well above expectations, so now it's time to get our plan set to cross Turnagain Arm and head to Point Possession. The plan is to launch the Solar 430 boat at the port of Anchorage. We need to cross between Anchorage and Fire Island and then make the crossing of open water across Turnagain Arm. Now, we are not taking this crossing lightly, and if you ever contemplate doing this, you should not take it lightly either. The water level changes at least 20 feet between low and high tide, and that 20-foot change in water depth happens 4 times a day with the tide. In fact, a lot of this area becomes dry ground with low tide, and then 20 feet of water will cover it 6 hours later. These shallow tidal zones are extremely dangerous for boats. It can be very easy to hit ground and get stuck. These severe tides and shallow waters are an extreme threat to Captain Cook's boats and could have easily destroyed both of their boats. Also, the wind patterns in this area create a funnel effect for wind down Turnagain Arm, causing severe and confused seas. Here's a picture I took of Turnagain Arm last year during high winds. High winds plus shallow water plus multiple converging currents cause confused seas that can easily sink a boat. There is an alternative route to get to Point Possession. I grew up on the Kenai Peninsula, and if you drive to the end of the road at North Kenai, you reach Captain Cook State Park. You can walk, ride a bike, or ride an ATV along the coast at low tide and access Point Possession. We discussed taking this route, but it would take about 4 hours to drive to North Kenai and another 2 to 3 hours to get up the beach. Making the water crossing would only take us about an hour.
Okay, battery's hooked up. That's just NRS strap in case we were gonna need to tie stuff down.
We picked our day for the crossing carefully, checked the weather, winds, tides, and the marine forecast about 100 times, and then we went for it.
That's it.
That's not that much. Okay.
That's right.
Adjust those because I figured you're gonna be sitting here, right?
Yeah, so you put it on the other side.
Then I'll probably sit on this side.
Everything's like pretty locked down as far as waterproof here.
Better say a little safety prayer.
That's a good idea.
They don't even have the ramp in yet for the season. You see the tides going down?
Dude, this is sick. This is sick. Dressed me and everything, man. I love it. Thanks.
It's like scuba diving. You got to make sure you're squared away. So you do for your dive, buddy.
Is that a diving knife right there?
Yeah, I used this at Trevor's when Trevor's boat was flooding. I took this, deployed the old Benchmade river knife, and I cut the can open. So we had a bailing buck. I was like, crap, I need a knife. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm wearing it.
Fantastic.
Let's roll.
Swimmer hasn't died yet. That's a charge.
There you go. Oh, that thing in reverse. Let's see our tide. Where we got a couple feet. Already down what? A couple feet? 2 feet? 3 feet?
Jump in. Let's do it.
So I might be able to stay out of your zone a little bit better. I don't know. I'm gonna be like, wake me up when we get there.
Looks nice, dude. Looks super nice.
I just plopped in. I'm like, yeah, maybe this will work.
Need much better than that.
No, this is pretty good.
It's pretty good. Out there.
Okay, total time from idling around, even outside the ramp, getting set, 1 hour and 12 minutes.
Hour 12. What do we predict, an hour?
I mean, we just pull the plug and drain everything out.
All right, this is our beach. We first got going, it was flat, calm seas, but then it got real bumpy real quick. Tie up here, bring the rest of the stuff up. We're gonna get going here pretty soon. We're gonna give it a little shakedown, do a little plan about what we're gonna do here. Yeah, man, this is looking big out here, isn't it? It's a lot of area.
Feeling the pine trees, though, for some reason.
So this is what I thought. So they got their boats anchored over there on the south end of Fire Island, right? Deeper water, they got their boats, Resolution and Discovery out there. They're gonna paddle over here. I think they're gonna find the point of land that is closest to Fire Island, and I think that they're freaking English, they're freaking sentimental, they're all about like, you know, doing things the proper way. I think they're gonna find the spot that looks like the most proper spot that's pushed out there furthest, and right where you're saying, it's like right out here. So I think it's down this way, exactly where you're saying, by those trees over there. And then I think that they're smart enough not to do it in the tidal zone. I think they're gonna come up higher than high tide, and they're gonna bury it off in this area somewhere. And this looks like a stable area. That bluff looks stable up there also, is what I thought. Agreed. So I think they're gonna do it somewhere between this row of driftwood and the bluff. Somewhere between there. And I think they're gonna do it, if I had to guess, I would say it would be on the beach half of that. I mean, that's where I'd look first. Yeah, so we're right here. So I'm thinking this point to where we're at.
This looks real. See, this looks stable to me.
Oh, that looks stable too.
You know what I mean?
I think, this is crazy. This is
Awesome.
crazy.
All right. Well, I brought my shoes, my regular shoes. I might kick
So
out
that-
the waders.
I heard the same thing, man. I'm gonna kick this stuff off and get comfortable.
Yeah, without the waders.
All right, let's try and show the other half of the beach over here. This is where we're gonna look first, over this direction. So just to get the lay of the land, Fire Island is right behind me. And on June 1st, 1778, they row their boats over here to right where we're standing.
I know you're on the caffeinated beverage program, but we don't want you cramping up.
This is supposed to take like 45 seconds. Why don't you carry the shovel and we'll carry this around, and if we find something real hot, then we'll just call the other one over.
It's like I pulled out of the trash at 212.
Yours?
Yeah, I just dumpster dive stuff all the time.
Oh yeah. Just luckily I got one bar out here. Let's see if we can call Camille. Let her know we made it out here safely. Hey, what's up?
Hey, did you guys make it?
Yeah, we survived. Isn't it amazing? Made it all the way across, survived, huh?
Thank goodness for that.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get going. We don't have too much time out here. It's
When should we expect you guys back? Just so we know.
7 o'clock maybe.
Okay.
All right, okay.
All right. Okay, good. Okay, love you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
You gotta check every single time the metal detector goes off. You gotta check. 2 minutes into searching for this bottle, and something went off. There's no way that the first spot's gonna be the. Oh, here it is. Found it. It's a big old hunk of nail, though. That's interesting. It's a gigantic nail. It's literally at a perfect right angle. All right. Those are our first positives hit on something metal, and we found something. So this metal detector is definitely working. When Captain Cook came to Point Possession to bury the bottle and perform the ceremony to take possession of the land, it was led by Captain Cook's Lieutenant James King. He had a small group of men with him. Some of the natives met them when they came to shore. They exchanged some items with the natives, and James King describes Point Possession with words that seem to describe what the area continues to look like today. He described a low land with grass and an area of small trees. Point Possession continues to have these same characteristics. Much of the land around the Cook Inlet experiences natural erosion, but Point Possession appears to not have natural erosion, and the bluff and hill above Point Possession is covered with trees and other vegetation, indicating long-standing stability of the land without erosion. I did a search to see how much further underground an object would be if it was buried 250 years ago. I was surprised to find out that most likely it would only be a couple inches deeper after 250 years. James King was the person who actually buried the bottle. He specifically stated that he walked off from the natives to bury the bottle so that they would not see him. He also said that he buried it in a, quote, not a conspicuous place, end quote. I think that would mean that he buried the bottle in an inconspicuous place, which would mean that he didn't put it somewhere obvious. He also stated that he put some rocks over the bottle. One thing about Point Possession is that it's a much bigger area than I was expecting. And when you're using a metal detector, you go a lot slower than I was expecting. So we covered a lot less ground than I was hoping. Oh, here it is.
caught another Oli can.
Shot up.
Just the tiniest little piece of metal we're pulling out of the ground. I think we've dug about 400 holes already. Tide's still out, but it's coming back in, so we only have another hour.
All right, man. Here's our collection.
This is the haul.
Let's go take a look at this. This is what we got. So, was that tent stake, a bunch of bullets, some shotgun shells, and then the actual bullets. Lots of nails. And most of them are bent 90 degrees, which is somewhat odd. Yeah, if anybody knows why these are, most of them are bent 90 degrees, that would be helpful. Check this out. Big old hunk of metal there. That was easy to find. And then the assortment of cans that have been shot up.
We have time constraints from the tide, so the tide's right about to hit our boat, so we gotta head back here pretty soon. But my conclusion here is, if it's buried, it's somewhere up here where we were metal detecting. It doesn't look like that soil's turning over, like it's holding things that are super, super old. So I think there's a chance it's still here. It's gonna take, it's a lot of ground to cover. So, I mean, we GPS'd all of our tracking, all of our, where we metal detect, and it's surprisingly a tiny area of possession point here. So there's a lot of places left to look here. It'd be awesome if we could come back some other day, or somebody else could come back someday and pull this bottle out and check out these coins and check out the letters that they put in this bottle. It'd be super cool, but unfortunately we have time constraints, and you gotta get it back before the tides go bad, before the wind picks up, all that kind of stuff. We don't want to die going across River Turnagain.
So we have to leave when that tide gets up to our boat. The water's nice and calm right now. It was definitely a lot more choppy and rough.
I have
when we
heard
came
people around
into
Alaska criticize Captain Cook
spin it,
for
or just wait
spending
till-
very little time around this area and wanting to get out of this area as quickly as possible. Although those things are true, they're also somewhat taken out of context and somewhat unfair. Captain Cook's boats were in extreme danger, anchored off a fire island near Turnagain Arm. In fact, all the way up and down the Cook Inlet, his boats were a pretty dangerous situation. The Cook Inlet, and especially around Turnagain Arm, pose a significant threat to a sailboat, and especially an old wooden sailboat from the 1700s. Captain Cook had to get out of here as quickly as possible for the safety of his boat and his crew.
Dude, check this out.
Oh yeah, look at this.
Yeah, those birds.
Dude, this is the handhold you made?
Tied some,
Sick, dude.
tied some loops, and I just figured we'd see how it goes and then get something permanent in there.
If I could say anything to Captain Cook, it would be that the land that he explored and mapped is God's country. It can be severe and hard to live in and want to kill you at times, but wow, this land is beautiful and magnificent, with some of the best rivers, mountains, and forests in the world. We are lucky to live here. Until next time, keep getting outdoors and exploring.
Made it. Final last words.
Epic trip.
We survived.
It was amazing.
Didn't find the treasure.
Better than good.
Way better than good.
Way better. Yeah, Stoke is still high.
That's what I had to-
Still high.